What is going on, Internet? My name is Lou, and I make Linux videos. Today is going to be the second installation in my Switching to Fedora Linux series, and we're going to be covering the installation of the NVIDIA proprietary video drivers. So if you're an ATI user, I'm sorry I do not have an ATI card, so I can't demonstrate this for you and be able to test it with 100% reliability. However, the method that I'm using to install the driver today could very well work for you using an ATI card. So the same principles would apply. You're just going to be installing different packages essentially. So this video can help you as well. So first thing we're going to do is come over here to my, I have a Fedora 21 install in boxes. If you watched my first episode, you would have seen me do this installation. Boxes, again, is GNOME's virtual software application, and it's awesome. I love Boxes. So anyway, I want to say one thing before I actually start this tutorial, and that is Linux is a labor of love. As long as you keep that in the back of your head, when issues come up, you're going to be able to approach those issues with the right perspective. And that doesn't mean you won't be frustrated. That doesn't mean that you're not going to get upset, because I sure did when I was trying to install my NVIDIA drivers here. But, you know, we're being offered this operating system free of charge. So with that said, we're not a paying customer. We don't have any, we don't have the right to hold Fedora to any type of expectation, okay? We either simply like their software and use it, or we don't like their software and not use it. Okay, so as long as you keep that in mind, and that goes for any Linux distribution, you're going to be able to get through your Linux experience just fine. You know, if it were a Microsoft product or an Apple product, you as a consumer and a customer have the right to hold those companies accountable to a certain level of so a certain degree of dependability and reliability of their software, because you're a paying customer and that's what you're paying for. With Linux, we do not have that. Okay, so, you know, sometimes there's an issue, you got to roll up your sleeves. And for me, I learned that way. I learned when something gets broken, how to fix it. It's the same thing. You know, when I started working on cars, I knew nothing about cars, but I had an old 87 Jeep that I had to carry a set of tools around with me. But I loved that Jeep, and it would break down and I'd have to learn how to fix it. But I learned a lot about cars by having that vehicle, and I'm really thankful for it. Although at the time I was extremely frustrated, I'm extremely thankful for that experience, because now I can hold my own when it comes to car repair and car maintenance, all because of that experience. Linux is very similar. I knew very little about computers or operating systems or how things worked until I started using Linux. And now I feel like I can approach an operating system, whether it be on a mobile device or something like Windows or Apple's OS X, and I have a much better understanding of how operating systems work and how software works because of my experience with Linux. So anyway, we're going to open up our web browser, and we're going to go to, we're going to type in rpmfusion and NVIDIA. And the very first link that pops up on Google is where we want to go. So as you can see here, there's all sorts of little links that are going to help you determining what kind of model your card is. I already know that I have an NVIDIA GeForce 650, and it's going to tell us how to get all of this stuff done. However, the very first step, we're going to select configuration over here, is to get the rpmfusion repositories set up on our system. So to do that, it's very simple. I suggest using the command line. It's simply just a copy and paste. So I'm going to bring you guys in here so you can see. If you're running Fedora 14 to most current, you're just going to copy everything that's in this box here. And we're going to come over to our terminal, and we're just going to paste it in. Hit enter. Now I already have these for the sake of time. I already installed these repositories, so there's nothing to do. However, for you, you're going to be presented with a prompt. Essentially, do you want to install these repos? Hit, select yes or no. You're going to select yes. After that, you're going to issue a sudo yum update. Type in your password. Type in your right password. I do that all the time. All right, so that's it. Now, if we do a sudo yum search, whoops, sudo yum search NVIDIA, we're going to be presented with all these options. Okay. Now, if we go back here and we come back over to the directions here, it's going to tell us, depending on the card that we have, what driver to install and how to do it. Now, with myself, running this option here for the GeForce 6 or 7 series card, it's going to install the NVIDIA 304 driver, and it's going to install the kmod version. Basically what kmod is, it's essentially like DKMS. If you're on a Debian or an Ubuntu-based system, this helps build the module against whatever current kernel that you're running. Now, if the kernel updates, in theory, what it's supposed to do is rebuild the module against the new kernel. So you have to kind of pay attention to when your system updates if you're running something other than the kmod. Now, there is another version. So instead of kmod, you can also install the kmod version. Now, you notice kmod has specific kernel versions associated with it, okay? Because essentially it's a pre-built kernel module or driver against that specific kernel version. For today's tutorial, because for me it was more reliable, we're going to use kmod instead of akmod. Most people will tell you akmod, which you can use in a lot of the circumstances, but for me, on my current system, I tested it out using kmod and it worked. I probably will try the akmod way as well, but after a very long time and a lot of mishaps with this proprietary video driver, I finally got a method that works, so I didn't want to mess with it too much. Now, the 304 driver does not work on this installation of Fedora 21 for me. Even though it's an older driver, it's supposed to support my card, did not work. The NVIDIA 340 driver, also, I got it to install. However, when I came over and I installed Steam, when I would launch Steam, and by the way, for any of you that are on Steam, I have my Steam credentials in the video description, so feel free to add me on Steam. I've added quite a few people from YouTube that have requested me. So last night, I haven't played Half-Life 2 Deathmatch forever. This is probably my all-time favorite first-person shooter ever made. I love this game, and it'd be cool. Maybe we can get a group of people together and play some Half-Life 2. So anyway, when I would launch Steam, it would give me some OpenGL errors. Okay, and I'm going to show you how to get around that OpenGL error as well. But it had to do with some 32-bit libraries that needed to be installed. Again, lots of scouring the internet and trial and error, and I finally got it to work. I'm going to save you guys all that time and that hassle. So if you're running specifically an NVIDIA 6 or 7 card, this should work flawlessly for you because it's the exact same one I'm running. All right, so there is another option. If we don't want to use what's currently in the Fedora 21 repos, we can use something out of Rawhide. Now, again, if you didn't watch my latest video, which is how to turn Fedora into a rolling distro, Rawhide is essentially the development branch of Fedora. You can install any bleeding edge software right out of Rawhide. Now, this is going to use the akmod version, which didn't work for me initially. So, with that said, I'm going to show you guys how to use kmod and install the latest and greatest driver out of the Rawhide repository. So we're going to cherry pick it right out of Rawhide, and we're going to get it installed right on our system here in Fedora 21. So I've got a little cheat sheet. Again, these are going to all be in the video description below, so you can check for all these commands. First thing we're going to want to do, now technically this step here is not necessarily necessary because we're getting a pre-built package, but I think it's good to have this installed anyway on your system. So we're going to install the development packages for my current kernel. So simply just copy and paste. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to enable the rpmfusion-nonfree-rawhide repo to install the kmod-nvidia package. So now that that's done, we're going to copy and paste here. I'll bring you guys in just a little bit closer so you can see what's going on. So this is going to install the 346.35 driver. This is the most current driver that's available for NVIDIA. And it's also going to install the Xorg X11 DRV driver, as well as the libs. Okay. Now we're going to come back to that after this because we're going to need to install the 32-bit package of the Xorg X11 DRV driver to be able to get Steam working and functional on the system here. So total size is going to be 124 megs. So we're going to select yes. We're going to hit enter. Now, when you use a kmod, it's going to disable the nouveau driver for you automatically. I haven't been able to verify whether or not kmod automatically disables it, but just to be sure, I'm going to show you guys how we're going to disable the nouveau driver, which is the open source video driver for NVIDIA. There's a few ways to do that as well. I'm going to show you the way that I prefer and that worked for me. So we're going to select yes here again. It's going to install. For any of you who have seen my video using the Xorg Edgers PPA for Ubuntu, you know that it's all copy and paste. You guys aren't copying and pasting commands into the terminal. You're not having to play around with configuring a ton of things. So this method should be just as easy as the Xorg Edgers method as well. All right. So now that that's done, I want to install one more package. This is if you want to play games on Steam and you want to have the OpenGL work properly and not have Steam give you all sorts of weird errors. We're going to copy and paste this in. I'll bring you guys in a little bit closer so you can see what's going on. This is a 64-bit lib for the Xorg X11 DRV NVIDIA package, and this will help Steam run properly in the way that it should. So we'll hit enter. It's going to also install some dependencies. You see i686, that means these are all 32-bit dependencies. So we're just going to select yes, hit enter. All right, that's it. So now what we're going to do is we're going to take care of the nouveau driver. So what we're going to do is in our boot directory, the initramfs, which is a really weird word to say. Essentially, it's the boot image for the nouveau driver. I guess that's the easiest way to describe it. We're going to get rid of that, and we're going to create a new boot image. So all you've got to do is simply copy this, paste it in, hit enter. All right, that's it. That's that easy. It's going to keep that nouveau. All we did is rename it. It's going to keep that image there, so if you ever want to go back to it, you can. And we're going to regenerate. Hit enter. Don't freak out if this takes a few seconds. It is going to take a couple of seconds to finish doing what it does. Now, what I also did was after I generated all of these. Good, actually, that finished rather quickly. Now, let's see here. I don't know, because it's using a virtualized, obviously, video card. I don't know if this is going to work now on this virtual machine. However, I will reboot this machine and see if everything works, and we'll see if the NVIDIA package actually installed. However, if you're actually doing all this on hardware, this should work no problem. We'll see if it actually works here for the virtual machine. It may not. It may have relied on that nouveau driver because we're in a virtualized environment here. We're not actually using that hardware. exactly. So it was relying on the nouveau driver here for my virtual machine. So if you were running this on actual hardware, those are the steps, and it in fact would have worked. So what we're going to do is we're going to come over here and we're going to do a forced shutdown of that virtual machine. So I'll show you what I did as well. After I got my NVIDIA drivers installed, I also went over here and I came into the X server display configuration, and I wanted to save an X configuration file. And the reason why I wanted to do this was I have a certain option that I add to my configuration, my Xorg, that keeps it running essentially clocked at the highest setting possible. So if we come over here and go over to PowerMiser, you see that the graphics clock, or the clock speed, normally this is going to be regulated based on the load on the graphics card, and you know it will determine the level that it's going to keep you at here. I don't really like that option. I'm on a desktop, I'm not in a laptop. Power consumption really doesn't matter to me. I'd rather have my graphics card running at the highest clock speed possible all the time. So I want it at the level 2. All right. Now, even though this says auto, even when I select preferred maximum performance, that doesn't always do the trick for me. I want to make sure that it's always running at this clock speed. As you can see, nothing really graphically intensive is going on here on my system, but I'm still running at the highest clock speed possible. All right, so the way that I did that was I added a certain option to my xorg.conf file. All right, and I actually had to create that file because by default, there is no xorg.conf. So the way that you're going to do that, you're going to create the file first. You're going to hit Save Configuration. That file is usually located in your etc directory, the x11, and then of course you're going to call it xorg.conf. All right, so we're going to hit Cancel. Now, when we go to view mine, again, it's in etc. Come over to x11 directory. Now there's an NVIDIA xorg.conf. This is just going to identify the kind of video card that I have. And then there's my xorg.conf. If we look at this here, as you can see, I created it against the version 34635, which is the driver that I'm running now. And I'll show you the option that I added. I'll include this in the video description below. Under the section that says Device, you're going to see identifiers, device 0, drivers NVIDIA, vendor names NVIDIA Corporation, board names GeForce GTX 650. Then I added this. It says option, and then registry dwords, and then this. This is going to basically keep my system running at the highest clock speed all the time. So it's not going to it's not going to basically depend upon the software to tell it what to do based on the load of the system. I want that instantaneous response. I notice oftentimes when I leave it on auto and I'm watching a video, there's checkerboarding. And that's because my video card is clocked down. And so it's giving me checkerboarding in HD videos. So a lot of people think it's actually video tearing or checkerboarding because it's the driver. It's really not. It's because what you end up having is that lower clock speed, and it affects HD playback. So I just want it flat out at the highest performance all the time. I'll include this option in the video description below. If you generate an xorg.conf file and add this, you'll be at the highest clock speed possible all the time. So that's pretty much it, guys. Again, don't get scared because of that virtual machine. I know that I was not running an NVIDIA card, so of course when I try to install those drivers, it's going to screw up the virtual machine because it's virtualizing everything, and it was depending upon that nouveau driver in the virtual machine. So once I removed it or disabled it and it asked it to use NVIDIA, it got screwed up. But I assure you, if you're using regular hardware, it's going to work just fine, especially the NVIDIA GeForce 6 series, which I had issues with. But if you're also using a newer NVIDIA card, the same process applies, and you should have it up and running no problem. Once again, I've got Steam here going. Everything works just fine. I'll launch a game real quick for you. And there we go. So even Steam launched just fine, no errors, everything's very smooth. And I was playing the game last night and everything worked great. So hopefully this video helps. If so, do me a favor, give it a thumbs up, leave your feedback in the video description below, share this with your friends. We want to get the word out on Fedora, and we want to get these tutorials popularized so Fedora can be a viable option to those people who may be frustrated with Ubuntu or want to try something different. So as always, guys, I appreciate your support. Thank you for all of the positive feedback, and stay tuned for the next episode of Switching to Fedora. We'll talk to you guys later.